Thank you. Thank you for everyone being here. I want everyone to know that this workshop was initiated by the board, and it's intended to be a discussion about the student achievement kinds of things. We've asked administrators from at various levels. Obviously, not all administrators are here, but rather we asked people from buildings and grades where it seems to be the data for national trends seems to be an important place for interventions to take place. And so we are here for a discussion. The board wants to know what is being done, what you think could be done, and how the board can support you in your work as far as identifying students that are not succeeding, that need help, and what we can do to assist you in providing that help. So that is the purpose of this meeting. Please, I hope no one thinks they're on a hot seat. That's not the intent. It is purely a discussion so that the board is more informed as to what is going on in our buildings at the various grades and how, again, we can be of help and assistance to you. So with that, Mr. Batolo has initiated a lot of this discussion. So I'm going to turn it over to him to kind of start the conversation. Please do not feel like, there's any particular order. We are just, like I said, we are interested in information. And I think the survey that we did, the self-evaluation, today's self-evaluation on planning kind of brings that to a stage where we as a board want to be more involved, not down in the weeds, not that kind of thing, but again, how we can support you in your work to help identify students to be more successful and for all students, not just some, but all students. So with that, Mr. Batolo, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yeah, it's fair to say that I've pressed this issue for a couple of years at least. It happens to be a passion area for me. I think the one thing that everyone in this room can agree on is until this rate gets to 100%, we'll all agree that we need to do all we can to support anyone that's left. So please don't see this, especially from me, and I can't speak for my other board members, but I think I am speaking for them when I say that we're looking for ways to help. We're not looking for ways to pass blame or judgment. The unfortunate thing is that when you talk about graduation rates, it usually ends up being the high school that gets talked to about that. They get at least looked at. I've had quite a bit of experience in this particular area, and that's part of the reason why I wanted to have the conversation. As we discuss this, there are probably lots of things that are going on that I and the other board members don't know that you're doing. But I would like to encourage us as a board and as a school community to make this the highest priority that we have. I know we've got a lot of things going on, and I just think that this is something that could be really cathartic for everybody involved in the system. I look at the data that Wyoming Department of Education puts down, and we're really not any different than we've ever been in Rock Springs. It's always been around the 75%. I think the lowest we were at one point was 72%, and the highest was 77%, but mostly we're right in the same zone. I just think that there are some things that we can do proactively that might allow us to help kids be a little bit more successful earlier. Everybody in here has heard me talk about English and math scores and classes at 3rd, 6th, and 9th grade being a key. I've been involved in programs that had specific interventions for that, especially in 9th grade, doubling up opportunities for kids, especially in math classes, to where they can get as much as they can to be able to graduate. So I really want to thank everyone for being here. And I guess what I'd like to maybe do, if we can, is to have maybe from the high school down, talk about what the current state is of our progress. And if you have ideas or things that you want to share with the Board of Education, please do that.
Mr. Supus? I will add, so that everybody is clear, this meeting is being streamed. It is a public meeting, so it is being streamed. So I just want everybody to be aware of that.
Good evening, Madam Chair, Mr. Vitolo, rest of the board. Thank you for giving us this opportunity to speak tonight in regards to our current status at Rock Springs High School, where we're at, and what our plans are moving forward. It's always an interesting time of year because we're getting ready to bring in about 400 freshmen into the building, which is always fun. And also taking a look at about the 400 of them that should hopefully be leaving in May. So it's always a great time of year to be able to take a look at those and do some comparison and do some looking. We've done some analysis of the current data that has been presented. We've identified at-risk numbers, both in the freshman class and within the senior class. Right now, we're at about 100 in each one of those grade levels that are at risk, whether it be about 100 seniors that are somewhere in the area of not having almost enough credits to graduate, and then about 100 freshmen that are coming to us that have been identified as at risk through the formularies within PowerSchool, meaning that when they came to us from the junior high, they were identified as an attendance issue or a behavior issue, or were at risk because they failed a core class, whether it be English, math, science, or social studies. So we've already started taking a look at those and trying to identify where they're at. The easiest one to talk about first is, of course, our seniors. With the 100 or so, we look at the raw data, and the raw data is the number of credit hours that a senior should have as they enter within their senior year. And that's what's always interesting, because with the 18 credit diploma and then the 24 credit diploma, we have to kind of draw a line in the sand. Where are we at? We use the identifier, that first screener is, of course, students that are coming to us under that, what we would consider to be at graduate level, meaning that they've at least passed 6 classes their freshman year, sophomore year, and junior year. So with doing the simple math, that's 18 credits. We have several of them that are right on that border. So when we took a look at these seniors, some of them had the 18 credits, but they were also identified because they were attendance issues last year, or they may have had some behavioral issues last year. So all the 100 are not necessarily at risk of not graduating. They're at risk, whether they be EL, whether they are special education students who are still on a diploma track. All those students have been identified. We have taken the senior class, and we do have 3 graduation coaches this year. So our plan is to take those 100 or so kids, and that number is fluctuating because we're getting rolling enrollment right now. It's fluctuating on a daily basis. We're either gaining 20 or losing 5. It just the nature of the beast right now. So we're taking that 100 or so that have been identified as at risk, and we're breaking them up into 3 groups, and we're creating caseloads for each one of our graduation coaches. The graduation coaches have already started. They're all new hires, so we got to bring them on early this year compared to the 11th of August when the rest of our staff comes on board. So our graduation coaches already have the demographic data, the cumulative data, and the log entries that would help provide a picture of these seniors. They already have that group, and we're already getting ready to divide them up amongst the 3. So that's going to be their caseload for this year. Those seniors are also, if there's holes in their schedule or a way that we can identify, or whether they need to make up a class or so, we've already identified hours for them to attend a study hall, a guided study. So then that way those seniors have an extra class period for which they can go ahead and work one-on-one with the grad coach. We're keeping those numbers very small. We're not looking at 27 in those like our regular class limit. That would be way too much. But we are looking at small caseloads of about 10 or 12 in each one of those guided studies. And with that, we are definitely looking at the credits that they are deficient in. We've already started our planning for our Friday schools. Friday school is an opportunity for us to provide credit recovery for those students that are still needing to pass classes. So we are putting together our staff right now. We're developing the plans, and they're going to be our first focus for Friday school. So our goal is to set up for our very first Friday that's available to go ahead and set up and start helping kids recover credit on that first Friday. We're going to be using the model that we adopted in summer school, i.e. we're not going to be sitting them down in front of a canned curriculum on a computer. We are going to go ahead and set these kids down in front of the priority standards that they need to be able to demonstrate proficiency on. And they're going to demonstrate that proficiency, and we're going to go ahead and make sure that they demonstrate it at the level that is sufficient for them. And then we're going to go ahead and give them the credit, or they're going to earn it. Let's put it that way. We don't give credit, they earn it. So that's our first focus right out of the bat. We've already identified these seniors. We already know which classes that they need credit in. Our counselors have come in through several collaboration grants that Mrs. Gardner and the CIA office has been able to set up for us. They've already come in, and our counselors have already been working with the seniors and their senior schedules. And their first task was to go ahead and identify the classes that they need to take or retake, and they're going to be retaking them during the school day. And if we can't fit it into the schedule, that's where Friday school fits in. So we have that put in place. We have the mentorship involved with the grad coaches, and our whole goal is to try to get them on track to graduate, and that graduation coaches are going to be their first line. So that's what we're doing with seniors as of right now. We still have a lot of things to plan out. We still have the fluctuating enrollment. We're right now, I've got a list of the cohort group, so that way I can start identifying students that started the first day of their freshman year, compare them to the seniors that are enrolled right now, so I can start identifying those students that have maybe transitioned to Black Butte, or maybe these students have transferred on. That will give us a good indicator of where they're at, which ones we lost, and are we going to be able to gather them back or not. We've already talked to our graduation coaches that these seniors that have left the public school setting and actively or supposedly actively pursuing the HiSET, that's going to be the first job of the grad coaches, is to call those kids back and say, hey, we still have a home for you. If the HiSET has not been successful, come back. I very much have a different attitude with it. I don't mind if they graduate outside of their cohort as long as they get their diploma. And it's interesting because right now we have a senior that was supposed to walk in May. He finally finished his classes at the college, and we're hoping to be able to give him his diploma the first day of school. He persisted through that summer. And that's just one example of many of the students that have done. So our seniors are our first priority, but we also know that we need to catch them as freshmen. That's where, when you look at the students that have left our system, they usually are not 16 by the time they're freshmen. We usually lose them as sophomores. So if we lost them as sophomores, we can go back and identify what were some of those indicators. Did they move? Did they fail some of the core classes? What can we do to remediate? And we've already made some pretty significant changes to our freshman curriculum. So when we transition to freshmen, and those that are identified and those that are at risk, our freshmen are participating in the Don't Ever Stop consultants in their training for us as we move forward towards our evidence-based grading. And this is a very powerful process. I apologize. As a principal, your phone always goes off, so I apologize. So with our freshmen, we've already brought in 17 freshman teachers. This was also part of a grant through Jody's office, the curriculum office, to receive the newcomer training. So our freshman class, we have about 400 or so that are going to be in. So we identified 17 teachers. We have more than that, but these 17 teachers were able to come in for a 3-day training, talking about personalized mastery, talking about how we can provide instructional strategies that fit the needs of the kids, and really focusing on what a personalized classroom looks like. These 17 early adopters have been given the rein to go ahead and start modifying their curriculum and their classrooms to start transitioning to an evidence-based grading system. On top of that, on the 11th and 12th, during our teacher PD days, I have another 25 teachers that I've identified to continue to receive more of this newcomer or this personalized classroom training. Our freshmen are fortunate because we have 4 interventionists. This was through the ESSER grants that were provided. We have 4 interventionists. In fact, we just hired our 4th interventionist today. Hopefully it goes through. But it didn't make the board meeting tonight, so that's all right. We're okay with that. But we have 4 interventionists. And right now, we've identified 3 of them, and we're going to do the same thing. We've taken all the freshmen and we've broken them up into 3 groups, the pods. So you're going to see the peas in a pod thing that Copper did for us. We have identified 3 pods. Each of our pods have a core English, math, science, and social studies teacher, along with a foreign language teacher, along with a CTE teacher, along with a PE teacher. And we do PE because all the freshmen, if they didn't take health during the summer, they need to take health and they need to take PE. And then we've identified the interventionists. And these pods, they're working as a team with their 100 plus freshmen. And we've set aside days at the start of the school year for each of the pods to meet as a group in our auditorium. In that process, we'll be setting up the codes of collaboration that is essential for these freshmen to operate within a personalized mastery system. We're going to identify their strengths. We're going to do a personal interest inventory. We're going to start working on their career plans. We're looking at adopting something similar to the ICAP model that's used in Colorado, the Individual Career and Academic Plan. We know that if we can give freshmen some sort of guidance and not say this is what you're going to do, but here's the options that suit you right now, we can start focusing them on what they can do after they graduate. So giving them that plan. So we have the 3 pods. We have core teachers in each one of the pods. We have an interventionist assigned to each of the pods, and they're going to be operating as small teams to work with those freshmen. The freshmen are going to have them during their power hour. That's probably another one of the most significant changes that we've made this year within our system is our power hour. It's a model that we borrowed from Lander Valley High School. This is an opportunity for us to identify students who need remediation, and it's 50 minutes every day. So we can start identifying freshmen after that first week of school when we're asking all teachers to enter at least 1 grade. So we can quickly identify those students and we can quickly get them the help they need during the power hour for remediation. We also know that a majority of our freshmen are students that may not need any sort of remediation, but we can offer some sort of enrichment. So we're looking at doing these opportunity courses. So we're setting up a schedule right now where our teachers will be given the opportunity during power hour to teach something that they like. The perfect example, of course, comes from Lander, where one of the teachers is an avid fly fisherman. This gentleman teaches 15-minute classes on how to tie flies. But it's also that incentive piece so that the freshmen can know that once they have got their grades up, once they're meeting the standards of proficiency, they can then go do fun things. They can go then learn and do things differently. So we have the power hour. We have the pods. We have this core group that's going to be working strictly with those freshmen. And hopefully we can, through that process, we're taking a very large group and we're bringing it down to a smaller, more manageable group. Because also within the pods, and I forgot to mention this, we've also assigned a special education teacher to help identify those needs. We know that some of our special education students are at risk. So we can get them the help and the accommodations and the support they need through that power hour. So we're doing lots of these. We're focusing very heavily on how we can get the seniors caught up and quickly identify the freshmen and get them the supports that we need. Let's see, what else are we doing at Rock Springs High School? We are working through this process with Don't Ever Stop. We're continuously refining our guaranteed and viable curriculum, going through and identifying those standards, how we can measure those standards, and then what those measurements are going to look like to demonstrate proficiency. And it's interesting, it's a very strong model that is a part of what Don't Ever Stop is asking us to do. So we did, through the help of Gene and Copper, we took a look at several different things. We looked at the work through Don't Ever Stop. We did some searching, and one of the high schools in Casper, I believe it was Natrona, has been identified as a highly effective high school. They use CRIS strategies. And then we identified the work through Everyone Graduates and looked at their guidebook out of Johns Hopkins University. And Copper and Gene helped us with a crosswalk to identify what each one of these different areas are doing and then what they do. And even though we're not using the same lexicon that, that Everyone Graduates or that CRIS uses, they're blending together. We believe we're on the right track with this crosswalk. I have copies of that crosswalk if the board would like to eventually see that. But it talks about how with Everyone Graduates, we talk about personalized organization and structural reforms. CRIS strategies talk about empowering learners to be engaged, metacognitive, and strategic. With Don't Ever Stop, the focus is relevance, intervention, and personalization. So we're on the same track. It's just different lexicon, different modes of doing that. And I have to be honest with you that with Don't Ever Stop, it is very much a focus on the classroom environment, personalized learning, and what is good. So we took a look at that. And then we took a look at the work from the state of Wyoming and their current profiles of a graduate. You guys are very familiar with this work that has been done with the state of Wyoming and how it aligns with what we're trying to do at Rock Springs High School. And when it talks about academics, career, community, and life, the target points from the profiles of a graduate fit right in with what we're trying to do with Don't Ever Stop. It's with freshmen, though. And I think that is going to be the hardest part for all of us is we're doing lots of interventions for seniors and freshmen, but the ultimate question is going to be, so how are we going to continue that transition to when they're sophomores and when they're juniors? And then hopefully our work as seniors, I won't be coming to the board saying I have about 100 seniors that are at risk and possibly may not graduate from Rock Springs High School because we've taken the time freshman, sophomore, and junior years. So we're doing that. We also have, through another very generous grant and through the help of the Curriculum Institute office, we are working on and had some training and taking a look at Branching Minds. Branching Minds is kind of a one-stop shop for intervention. It's a data warehouse where we enter data, test scores, behavioral data, attendance data, and grades, and we enter it into this Branching Minds. And from that work, we can do their personal interest inventories. We can start talking about what their future goals are going to look like. Well, what's unique about Branching Minds is it automatically provides for us intervention suggestions. Whereas in the past, we had to use a PRIM manual, and the PRIM manual is this great big 8.5 by 11, 400-page book, and you have to actually look up the behavior, and then there might be 25 or 26 different interventions, so you kind of have to guess which intervention is going to work. Branching Minds is going to provide that to us in a one-stop shop, and every teacher is going to have access to it. So instead of everybody having a PRIM manual and wondering what they're going to do, each one of our teachers, as we get them trained up, each of our teachers are going to have that resource at their fingertips, and they're going to be able to look and say, well, my prime example is, of course, Little Glenn. Little Glenn's an at-risk freshman, and all of his data is in there, and everything is in there that is identifying. But each one of Little Glenn's teachers will have an opportunity to look at the interventions and say, you know what, that intervention may work in my classroom. Let's give it a try. Because we know that once we start doing that, then it naturally rolls into MTSS and what the AMP teams do. And with the MTSS model and what Branching Minds does, it blends together the academic, because we always seem to separate that. AMP team is academic. And then we have SWIS and we have data for behavioral. Well, Branching Minds is going to give us an opportunity to meld those two along with an SEL component. We're going to be able to use our SOS training, sources of strength training that we're going to be implementing into that program as well. So what we're creating, and one of the things that our early adopters identified, is we need a one place where we can look and find ideas to help kids. Well, Branching Minds is going to be able to give us that as well. So you can see we've done a lot of planning. We've done a lot of looking. We're still not quite there. We haven't refined our process, but we're slowly being able to identify those key areas. And one of the, as we move forward, we can start then taking a look at the curricular needs of the students. We made a pretty massive change with our curriculum this year and moving physical science out of the freshman year and moving biology into the freshman year. So here we have a major science content area that now we are bringing to the freshman level to hopefully get that the biological sciences and get that love for the sciences through biology, life sciences. That's going to be and then students will then take physical science and then they can pursue the different sciences as we go through there. And that's just one of many different little curricular things that we're making. So as you can see, I've talked a lot. I've taken quite a bit of time, but there is a lot that we are trying to do.
May want to do is give you 2 or 3 months to kind of get in and then come back and report to us again.
I'm all
Do you
for
think that
that.
would be enough time?
It'll take about 3 months for us to be able to take a look at our original data that we pulled during the summer. We have to remember, I should have prefaced this from the beginning. We all know that our students mature at different levels. Whereas they may have been not as mature at the 8th grade level. Well, a summer could change all that. So we've identified these kids before they've even walked in the door. So we're going to need some time to see if our quick identifying of the students is really an accurate identifier for what we need. Because we can take a look and maybe they hit a growth spurt. Maybe they just all of a sudden it's starting to click for them. And that would be also interesting as well to come back and tell the board, we identified 100, but really we're only looking at about 65 that truly are still meeting that at risk. We are providing those in-depth supports. Or I may come back and say, well, I'm up to 200 now that are at risk. But if we have to also go back and look at when these freshmen were just transitioning into middle school, the 7th and 8th grade in the middle of COVID. So they haven't had a normal secondary, what we would consider, and definitely secondary school is not normal, but a normal educational experience at the secondary level. So when we take a look at this, we're going to have to be very cognizant of that as we work with these kids and truly the work what we're doing within our freshman pods. This is for all freshmen. We're not just doing standards-based grading for the 100 students that have been identified as at risk. We're doing this for all of our freshmen. And we're giving the teachers the opportunity to try it out at their own pace, find what works for them, see what supports we can do to help them out. So it's going to be an interesting, but I would be more than happy, and I know my team would also be very happy to come back because we've looked at our YTOP data and what we've got coming in. That's another piece that I failed to mention is that we've identified that we have a lot of work to do as far as the YTOP and our blueprints and what our kids really need to know to be successful on those standardized tests. Our scores were, and we can't get too much in depth, but our scores are lacking for our freshmen coming in, especially in the area of reading. And that's why we're also very thankful that the curriculum office is bringing in a reading interventionist, a reading strategist to help us out. You don't talk about reading much in the secondary level. But we need to help our kids become better readers because that's going to be the great gatekeeper for everyone. So, but no, we would love to. Thank you.
Are those pods level?
No, sir. No, sir. We're not leveling. We are. The only thing that we are trying not to do is to put all 100 of our identified at-risk students in one pod. We're sharing the love. It is very random. We don't want, if we, and it's an interesting thought because you'd think, well, let's identify all the ones that are struggling with math and let's put them in one group. But when we take a look at our data, especially from Black Hills, we're finding that out of our special education students that graduate, we have a 50% graduation rate for our special education students. 50%, 1 and 2 special education students won't get a diploma from Rock Springs High School. Well, when you dig deeper and take a look at it, a majority of those students were ones that were in pull-out classes. They weren't the ones that were integrated with their peers and receiving additional accommodations. They were the ones that were pulled out for a foundations class or pulled out because they needed support. The research that we have identified says that we don't want to level in any way because it creates a bigger gap. And the last thing we need is a bigger gap with our freshmen right now. So thank you. I appreciate that question.
It feels like we said we don't want to blame it all on the high school, and we asked for every solution from the high school. And we only talked to the traditional high schools. We've got 2 high schools that are running the table. What kinds of things are you guys doing that help with this? I mean, so we can share with the community and also share with our other administrators. Can you talk about those?
So, hi, my name is Bryant Blake, the principal at Blackbutte High School. So one of the things we've been focusing on is really our den time, which is our intervention block during the day. And it's kind of the kids at our school. We're so small, you can't really get away from us. We're going to find you, and we're going to help you in any way, shape, or form. And it's a very collaborative effort between all my staff, where we're always every 2 weeks as a team, an AMP team, we're identifying kids, we're moving kids, we're finding what areas they need help in. We utilized our interventionist last year really well. She would actually go out and support kids throughout the day. And we're going to kind of combine that with our grad coach, because they got 3 grad coaches, Blackbutte High School, along with the virtual school. We've got a graduation coach for our school. So that's going to be a great thing. But that's kind of one of the biggest things we're doing. And we're just, it is kids can't really run or hide. They're just there. But yeah, the den time is a big piece that has really made things, because we built the intervention block during the day versus, because sometimes after school program, you can't get them there. But we have a block, and it's been really successful, and that's been a real thing.
Sorry, I'd like to commend the high school on everything that you're doing to put your kids in smaller pods so that they're in more manageable groups. And I think that's the piece with Farson. And when they speak of having 100 students in that are at risk, we're looking to graduate 10 kids this year. So we have the luxury of knowing our students and knowing where they are all the time. We've already looked at our seniors. We know where they are as far as graduation. We know who's struggling and who's at risk and who's not, because we know them in the classes that they've taken. We do spend a lot of time with our Friday school. I think that's a huge support. We do bring our kids in. We have a spreadsheet that we keep, and we can look at each one of them every Thursday morning, and we know who's failing any class at all times every single week. And that makes a huge difference, but the numbers are much more manageable for us. We have done, and we've seen also with COVID, a lot of regression in our students. We're concerned with where they are. They're not at the same level they were prior to the disruptions in their education. We've done a universal screening with IXL last year. That's what we used our remediation specialist for. Everyone took a screener to see where they were, and then we were able to adjust some interventions accordingly. But like I said, the numbers are different. They're really, we have 50 kids in our whole high school.
It truly does make a difference.
It really does. It's a fabulous opportunity to be able to do that, but you can't do that everywhere. If we could divide Rock Springs High School into 40 different schools, I think we could give those kids that same attention and that same ability to know who they are. I think that would be, it would look the same there. But I do, like I said, I really appreciate what you're doing to to break them down. That really makes a difference, I think.
Thank you.
Madam Chair,
Mr. Jackman?
just knowing that the free and reduced lunch population tends to be at risk, do we offer free or reduced lunch on Fridays at the high school?
No, it's, under the regulations, we're not able to do that, only on student contact days.
Any other questions before we move to the junior high? Okay. Mrs. Gundel?
So it's kind of ironic that the high school and the junior high principals did not get our heads together to come up with these plans. But when you hear me talk, you're going to be like, well, I think Mr. Supes already talked about that. I would say the first thing that we're doing is we started last year with our building goal to be building grit and resilience with students. We just find that students kind of sometimes take the easy road out. They don't understand, this is hard for me, so I need to work at it. So that was one of our building goals last year. We're continuing that work this year, and also to reduce the number of Fs that students have. We made progress, significant progress with that last year, knowing that if they fail a class as a 7th or 8th grader, that was easy because there is no repercussions from that. But then when you go to high school, then they find all, after they failed, oh my goodness, that's a big deal. So really trying to work with kids on that. We're doing something different this year. We're teaming within the building. So every core teacher is assigned to a team. So we have 2 teams in the 7th grade and 2 teams in the 8th grade. And all students are going to be working with teachers within that team for their core classes. And then the electives and those classes, they are a separate team and they will feed into the core teams as it suits them. So some of our goals with that are to make it easier for teachers to build relationships with students. They're going to be dealing with the same number of students they had before, but they're going to be working with teachers who have the same kids in a cross-curricular PLC. So conversations will be able to be driven by data, looking at the kids, building relationships with those kids. For example, little Glenn is not doing well in my language arts class. However, he's doing well in your math class. What are you doing? And really building those skills within the teachers about what works for specific kids. There's going to be a lot of, that allows them to have a lot of follow-up with following up on a kid like, hey, little Glenn didn't show up to after school. Do you know what's going on with that? Just those relationships. We also, our AMP, our Achievement Monitoring Progress team for the building is much smaller because it's going to be within each one of the teams. So again, those conversations driven by data about specific kids and how they're doing. It really eliminates the anonymity of a kid being able to kind of hide, because there's going to be 5 teachers who are going to, I don't want to say constrict you, I'm going to say they're going to hug them up close and keep close tabs on these kids and not allow kids to fall through the cracks. The same teachers will have had their eyes on the same kids. So we're really excited about that. There's going to be consistency with the expectations because the teams are working on their classroom expectations and their classroom management plans to be consistent. So when a student goes from language arts to math to science to social studies, things remain the same. They're not moving from one set of expectations to another one and really having a disjointed day. The team will determine who attends Friday school. So again, they're going to be able to have that conversation about, he's missing 6 assignments for me and he's missing 6 assignments for me. Let's get him in there. Let's get this work. Someone in Friday school will really be able to check in on those kids and see what they need. On the brighter side, the teams are going to have Student of the Month. And then we're also working on a different kind of recognition called Soaring Students, rather than calling them Most Improved. But students are starting to soar and make gains with what they're doing. So recognizing those kids quarterly. They're also through PBIS going to have monthly or semi-monthly recognitions of smaller things that kids are doing well. Trying to really build that positivity with kiddos. With our JAG time, and we worked on the building grit and resilience last year, we started a thing called Why Try. We had a guest speaker last year about Why Try and the 10 strategies to build resilience in students. We have an opportunity through a grant through Gear Up this year. They're paying for the professional development to bring us the curriculum. So we'll be using that curriculum during JAG time with our students, in addition to the SEL curriculum of Habitudes. So I really think that that's going to be another way that those teams can reach out and hug those kids in close. You're not going to be able to just fade away into the corner. Something else that we do is we have students set goals, looking at the research behind students setting and achieving goals. At the beginning of the semester, they'll set more long-term goals, but then on Mondays during JAG time, they're going to go in, they look at their grades, they see, you know, how am I doing? They set their goal for the week. Then on Thursday, they follow up with that. Oh, geez, I have 2 missing assignments. Here's my plan, how I'm going to get that done and get caught back up. Most of the Fs that we see students have, it's because they're missing work. And most of that is a student doesn't understand how grades average into a final grade. They get behind 3 or 4 assignments and they just feel like they're dead in the water and they just quit. And so we're really trying to not let them do that. On the Thursdays when they look at their missing assignments or their grades or whatever, and they come up with their plan, how they're going to fix that. We're trying to get a workaround. We used to have them, we had them emailing their parents last year to say, hey, I'm missing 3 assignments. Here's my plan. We can't do that anymore. We think we have a workaround. We're going to be experimenting with that the first week of school, but that's kind of our plan with that. Oh, and then through the curriculum office, we're also part of the literacy grant. And so in working with the literacy coach, we're going to be doing reading in the content areas and writing in the content areas, and then working with the content PLCs with that. But then on Fridays, when the cross-curricular teaming PLCs meet, working with the cross-curricular team, how are we going to incorporate this writing across the curriculum and reading across the curriculum to address some of our needs in that area.
I think you did really well.
Any questions about any of that? I talk faster than Glenn does.
Any questions? Thank you.
All right. Well, good evening, Madam Chair and Board of Trustees and all of our colleagues. I don't know about you, but I am really impressed with all the people that we work with. We are so excited to share. I have some organic, lovely notes here to just kind of share. There's so much I think that we would need more time to go into more depth and would be very open into if you wanted us to share in more detail at a later time as well. Yeah, there are things that I know all of us are forgetting to mention and trying to get all of those pieces in because this is very organic for us. This is wonderful. Yeah, thank you. Mhm. Okay. Okay, so I'll try to summarize, but most of you that know me, that's a little difficult for me. I'll do my best. But just cheers to everyone. As I would just say, even as a parent, I'm so proud that my child is in this district. So cheers to all of you in this district. So just some things that we're doing at Eastside. So first of all, let's recognize that it doesn't start in 6th grade. I know we're here because we're 6th grade principals, but it really starts even lower, right? 4th, 5th, and 6th. And so let's not forget that piece because we are doing some things school-wide, but there are some things that are unique just to 6th grade. So First of all, we're very proud to say that we do everything with Pilot. We plan with Pilot Butte. We do not allow our schools to be compared. We check in with each other. We have PLC meetings just as adults, right? So it needs to start with the leadership. What are the adults doing? And so we've been doing that even 5 years ago when Mr. Urban and I both started at that school, at our each individual schools together. We started that, and we continue that great work with Dr. Wells and Mr. Marcy. And so we're excited that we have that in place. It's a check and balance, and it keeps things going and motivated. So let's dig in. Okay. AMP PBIS. Let's talk about that. That's hand in hand. When you talk about the whole child, it's combined. One does not go without the other. So we continue our AMP PBIS process as one entity, pulling in social, emotional, behavior data, academic data that's ongoing, following that MTSS system. So we're aligned as a K-12 district. Okay, we don't live on an island in this district, and that's the beauty of Sweetwater One as well. We're not on an island. We are systemic. So as a board, you should hear consistencies, and you are, because we do support one another. It may not look exactly the same, but I will tell you what, we are systemic and learning and growing. Okay, the other thing that we are seeing success with, huge at Eastside, is inclusion. You spoke about that. And it does start younger. It starts clear in kindergarten. And cheers to Mrs. Arnoldi and Mrs. Gunter for always preaching that inclusion piece and really watching how you're creating individual education plans and supporting our students, because we know when you're never exposed to grade level reading, then where are you going to go? Where are you going to go if you're continually pulled out? You're not exposed to it. So you only go to the level that you're exposed to. So we are relentless at Eastside and Pilot with COTOT. We're very excited. We are piloting this year. We voluntold. This year we are so lucky we have 2 EL teachers. We've had 1 in the past. We have 2 EL teachers and an interventionist. And guess what they get to do this year? They're co-teaching ELA. Now, can they be in more places than one? No, but we've already assigned them partners, and they are co-teaching ELA. That's awesome. So that there's not the pullout as much. It's more of push in for students. So we're very excited to honor that structure, and we've received approval. I'm trying to stay hydrated. That was my water bottle. Thank you, Miss Nicole. I love her. So Black Hills Special Services, we'll start our 3rd year with them. We have been lucky enough to have them with us with data retreats and supporting through special services, and also Eastside qualifies under the SIG grant. So we utilize those monies with counselor support and interventions that are tied strictly to our school improvement goals. So we're excited to do that work. I think that's going to make a huge dent, and let me tell you why. At Eastside, in our COTOC classes, they're outperforming in other classes. You know why? It comes down to great teaching. It comes down to the purposeful planning and the structure of the 4-day week in which we have purposeful PLC time with follow-through implementation, monitoring, reflection. All of those things have to come together, right? They can't be segmented. So we're excited to continue that work. We cannot thank Rock Springs High School enough. The last 4 years that I was there, and now this 5th year starting with Carl that last year and this year, we have been blessed to continue an amazing partnership with them. It's peer mentoring, school-wide. It's not just 6th grade. We started that with seniors under the leadership of Mr. John Kundle, and we hope to continue the peer mentoring program with the seniors at Rock Springs High School. It is as much valuable for those seniors as it is for our children. They come down twice a week for an hour, and they're like a big brother, big sister. And we actually follow a peer mentoring program out of the University of Michigan, in which our past counselors provided training in which Carl or I are present for, and they go to the high school and offer that training. And it has been nothing but successful. So there's your motivation for our at-risk kids to come to school. In fact, my need is give me more seniors from everywhere. Give me more people. Okay, that's what we need, more people. But what it has built over the last 4 years is their confidence, their self-esteem. In fact, a few of our highly at-risk kids have actually had the the courage to tell me, well, I only come to school because my high school mentor's coming. Well, thank you. I will make sure they're in attendance. And so that peer mentoring program just for social skills, right? There's your AMP PBIS. All of this goes together as one, correct? The other piece to that is we've seen a lot of success in 6th grade ELA. We actually had one of our teachers receive 80% proficient advanced in YTOP. Don't think we're not knocking on that door, where they will be real sharing those successes and strategies. And one class is they're not stacked. We do our best to balance classrooms. It's what you have to do to give every child an equal opportunity in our public educational system, right? So that has been a success. We also partner with Rock Springs High School with Mr. Pierantoni on Little Kits, so that career ed. And this is specific to 6th grade. So what's exciting is every single 6th graders received, you know, the little kits for those of us that are a little older, it's kind of like build something in a kit. Every student in our building had that. And Mr. Pierantoni and one of his other teachers came down and they worked with the students for a couple of months. And then we had a process in which we celebrated what they created. And the top 20 students that had created that, they invited their families to go to Rock Springs High School and build something even more special. And I have goosebumps because that's when we saw the parents and they went to the high school and they did that on their own time, the high school teachers. And that was a great celebration. So I say that to you because maybe it doesn't seem big on the big spectrum, but I'm telling you it is. Every time you catch the little things, it's a building block for larger things. It brings them back. It encourages them. They're thirsting for more. That in turn supports that junior high that we love so much. In turn supports every high school sitting in this room, right? We're all tied together as a community. So we're excited to continue those partnerships. At Eastside, we highly believe in highly effective student engagement. And so how are we looking at all students and what they're doing in that classroom? Bryant talked a lot about the core time and intervention time and what we do, and that's what Pilot does as well. I'm kind of speaking with Pilot, but they'll have the opportunity. It's about how you have that core lesson, but then you have the ability to break down into small groups and really target and not let any kid slide through, which supports the work of the junior high. It just looks a little different because we departmentalize in 6th grade, and in 5th and 4th, they have that one special teacher with them all day for all those core subject areas. So we're trying to bridge 6th grade. It's almost like 4th and 5th is true elementary, and our 6th grade is a middle school because we departmentalize and get them ready for the preparation of what the junior high will look like. And that's working for us. But 4th and 5th, we feel that if with our student population, it's one teacher, that love, that support, because they have specials teachers, but that works for our population. Not every school is like that, and it works differently for other schools. Here's our big thing. With our data teams, we are implementing electronic student binders school-wide. Let's unpack this for just a quick second. Little Glenn is going to be successful because he's going to have his own electronic student binder in which they set their own goals regularly. It's like a mantra that are academic in all the core subject areas, even a social skills goal. Every teacher is going and has been being trained in their summer academies, which we're proud to say every one of our teams met this summer in summer academies. They wanted to. That gets them further ahead to prepare for our students. So electronic binders are new this year, and we will have access to all of those. That melds in the data teams. But here's the component. It's the students setting the goals based on their own data with common formative assessments, exit tickets, YTOP modulars, any piece of data that is important and crucial to their learning, their social skills goals. When you think of social skills goals in those data binders, it's really talking about, what are the expectations? What do you need to be successful? Looking at the report card, what are the social skills that we need? Right? So those data binders are going to encompass that. So we're excited to embark on this new journey, but it's for all. It's all. And it doesn't matter what other services you have. We're all going to be a part of that for our students. And so we're excited about that. And, we'd love to come and present later with our staff on those data binders, because that's huge. And we really, the reason we're doing that is this, the classrooms that we saw higher success are the classrooms that had the kids setting their own goals, being reflective, sharing it with their peers, their teacher, their families, and then setting new goals. That's pretty cool, right? We can start that in 4th grade. That's what we're doing this year. So hang on, everyone. Stay with us on that. We really pride ourselves in celebrations. Oftentimes we are dressed up, dancing around, and he just has jumped on nicely with that. Because I've been doing that for years.
We've been forced to.
I bring in costumes for him and I'm like, let's go. And he's like, let's go. Many celebrations in our multi-tiered system support with Eaglegrams, just our quarterly assemblies. One of the things that we recognize at Eastside with our population being very diverse is we're implementing multicultural quarterly PBIS assemblies. So not only are we celebrate the growth of the students each quarter, but we're bringing in purposeful multicultural celebrations. So we already have Cinco de Mayo scheduled. We're looking at our student population to say, how can we celebrate our children? Because when you don't celebrate different cultures, you lose their connection. So it's more than just that academia. It truly is. It's a lot of work, right? I'm more out talking about it, but it's great work and it's exciting work and it motivates us. So when we think, one other piece that's been really supportive with the district is 5th grade YO Town. And so now another 180 kids. YO Town is directly related to career and supporting that higher opportunity for what's next in life. It doesn't matter if you're going to be a banker, a welder. And how that process works through curriculum instruction and assessment is we start day one with YO Town. It is cross-curricular. It brings in math, social studies, science, writing, and reading. And we work with the students all year on YO Town, which envelops different career choices for the future. And the students work all year cross-curricularizing with the teacher support on what it is they want to be. Ms. Thompson knows very well about this because she came over for the interviews. And so every 5th grader got to dress up how they wanted to dress for their interview. And then they were chosen for their job. And they went to YO Town all day in Casper, Wyoming here. And WDE actually puts this event on. And so they go on the bus, 6:30 in the morning. The parents are there. They're excited. The kids are in their ties. They're all dressed up. And they go and they get to be a banker all day. And this convention center is set up for every job you can think of. And our children get to live that. Let's get our eye on the prize. It doesn't always have to be a certain track, right? The world goes round and round with all different jobs. And there are amazing jobs out there in our community. And the more we can expose them to that, the better off we're going to be. So we have a lot of work at Eastside, and we recognize that. Our YTOP scores, we have a lot of growth that we need to work on, but we're not afraid to attack that. And we're ready to have those great conversations with our staff and empower them, because you can't leave your teachers in the dust. The focus is on student learning, but it's the whole child, and you do not leave anyone in the dust. Get on the right bus and let's go. But we can't leave any of those pieces behind. Those are just some of the pieces, and Carl could talk briefly about the needs. Oh,
Do you
I
need me?
apologize.
you
Yep,
need-
sorry.
Go ahead.
Okay,
fire
we're
up.
done. Peace out. See, Glenn and I should have went very first. Oh, wait, we have to turn us off.
Okay, I'll be a little more succinct. No, you're good. I just want to return the focus to what I heard at the beginning, which was how can the board support the student learning? And I think there's two big ideas, and it's just mainly what we're doing tonight. And I just appreciate the opportunity for us as leaders to be able to converse with the board, but it's just listening and understanding and encouraging and being involved, because I think there's a level of understanding that comes when you're on the same page and you can create a vision and mission together. I think it's super important to be united and create that common vision. The second thing is just understanding philosophies and leadership styles, and being on the same page and being able to support that and being an advocacy to the community through that. So through those two lenses, I think it's just creating that purpose creating the vision and then keeping the focus on learning, which is what I hear the conversation is tonight, and to having more conversations through that lens. And then just, acting with trust. There's a lot of great experience at this table, and Kelly and Nicole have been here for quite some time, and the board also helps to support. I see something different now than I saw coming into the district, and this unity coming together. And when others see that at the forefront, there's just nowhere to go but to either be on the bus or off the bus. And so through that lens, we're doing all of those things that Eastside is talking about. And so I don't have to reiterate any of that, but just wanted to return the focus to, how can you support us just by listening and being involved in the process. And that data piece, I just want to highlight that is huge. I think if we can really focus those pieces, just the biggest thing I see is just creating or having a vehicle to create that or communicate that data from one level to another, from K3 to 4-5 to the junior high to the high school, and not having to start all over again and figure out a month and a half into the year where kids are. I think a lot of information gets lost in translation. And so I just want to highlight data warehousing or data sometime, communication between the buildings, and just what Jody's doing through her curriculum office, focus on reading. I think that's huge. Thank you for the resources for that. And through all those things, co-teaching, mentoring, all those things, PBIS, I think it's all possible through those lenses. So I just wanted to highlight that. Thank you. Mhm.
Mr. Nicholson?
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, everybody. It is phenomenal to hear the level of thought and work that has gone into reaching and building relationships with the students. As we look to 3 months from now or 6 months from now, coming back and having this conversation, the one thing that seems absent to me is how do we engage the people who are largely responsible for the student success or failure, their parents or guardians? How do we bring them to the table? And how do we get those relationships with them so that they're holding their kids accountable? Because we can build the biggest horse trough on the planet, but if the parents aren't getting the kids to it, it is going to make your job so much harder. There was a district, and I brought this up, I don't know, Kelly, you might remember, probably about 2013 in Montana. And part of how they addressed the at-risk students in the high school level was the principal, the superintendent, and a board member went and met individually with every family to say, what do you need as a family to help us help your kid succeed, which seems fairly daunting with 100. That's a lot of evenings. But I'd just like to hear more about how we're thinking as a district and are the things the board can do as that community liaison to help build those relationships with families to say, hey, we're not here to make your life hard. We're here to help your kid. So let us help you. And how do we do that better? Thank you.
Further comments from the board? Well, I too want to thank everyone for being here tonight. I know we didn't hear from everyone, but we heard from all the buildings. And we are going to follow up on this because I think this is one of the things as I was going through our leadership governance documents tonight, I felt like this is one of the areas that the board has not been as active in. And laying this groundwork has been very helpful. And I think the one thing that I drew in common from all the levels is the student engagement piece. That, they're setting the goals. It's their life that we're dealing with. And how do we bring that to their attention in one way or another and help them realize that this is for their benefit? So we are going to follow up on this. I know that you were told that you didn't have to prepare anything, so I realize that much of this was off the cuff. But it has been I'll speak for myself, and I think I'm speaking for the trustees as well. It has been very helpful to me and to us to understand what's going on in your buildings. And the question that remains is, and I think Mrs. Torstenbow addressed it a little bit, is what can the board do to help? And so I think if you come up with some ideas, we do need to adjourn to get to a board meeting. But if you should think of some things that you think the board could assist on. In some cases, it might be some policies. It might be funding. Whatever you come up with, we're certainly willing to take a look at it and see what we can do to support you, because there are clearly some excellent things moving forward, and we want to be supportive of those things. So with that, I will adjourn the meeting, and we'll take about just a couple of minutes to reconfigure and get to the board meeting. call the meeting of the Sweetwater County School District Number 1 Board of Trustees to order. First of all, I would like to apologize for our lateness. We had a board workshop with some of our administrators and it went a little bit over, so I apologize in advance and hope that the public is not, will understand as we were trying to work on some student achievement things that are going on in our buildings. So we're trying to be more informed along some of those lines. So please, I hope you'll indulge us in this late start. That being said, if you would stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Ms. Murray, if you would call the roll, please.
Mr. Reedy?
Here.
Mrs. Summers? Here. Mr. Mickelson?
Here.
Mr. Batolo?
Here.
Mr. Jackman?
Here.
Mrs. Thompson? Here. Chair Jellicoe?
Here. Thank you. I would entertain a motion to approve the agenda, which does include a couple of addendum items that are marked addendum as we go through it. So is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
It's been moved by Mr. Mickelson. Is there a second?
Second.
Second, Mrs. Summers, thank you. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Opposed, nay. Motion passes. Okay, item number 4, a motion to suspend the board meeting and open the public hearing. Is there a motion?
So moved.
It's been moved by Mr. Jackman. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mrs. Summers. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion passes. We are now in the public hearing.
Good evening, Chair Jellicoe, Board of Trustees, and Superintendent McGovern. Okay, is that better? Okay. I'll start over. Good evening, Chair Jellicoe, Board of Trustees, and Superintendent McGovern. The purpose of the public hearing is to review the budget amendment before the board tonight. And if you can pull that up. Thank you. The budget resolution encompasses 2 of our ESSER grants. ESSER 2, which is for reclassification of the workforce stabilization funds, and also the virtual school. The second is our ESSER 3 grant, or ARP ESSER 3, which also goes to reclassification of the workforce stabilization and virtual school. For the board's information, we will also be bringing to the board in September a budget hearing and action item to approve a workforce stabilization incentive for eligible employees. The estimated amount for this incentive is $1,546,276. We will use a similar calculation that was used in the spring for the workforce stabilization incentive that was provided to the employees of the district at that time. The incentive was calculated on a base amount for each person, and additional funds were also being allocated to that individual for the number of years that they worked in the district. We do not have the number at this time available tonight, but we'll be presenting that information in September. The calculation will be based on the number of employees in the district as of August 26, 2022.
The one-time payment will come in the form of a payroll run on September 28th of 2022, pending the board's approval at the board meeting. In September, there will be an action item for the board to consider regarding the workforce stabilization incentive for district employees. Another portion of the budget amendment or the budget resolution tonight is in the analysis of ESSER fund spreadsheet, in which you can see the adjustments to the ESSER 2 and ESSER 3 grants, which are part of tonight's hearing. Are there any questions?
Any questions? Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, we received no written public comment for the public hearing. Is there any in-person public comment on the public hearing on the resolution for the changing the funds, the budgeting part? Anyone? Seeing none, we'll close the public hearing and reconvene the board meeting. Is there a motion?
So moved.
It's been moved by Mr. Jackman. Is there a second? Second by Mrs. Thompson. All in favor, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Nay. The motion passes. So we are now back in our regular meeting. Item number 8 is the communications and correspondence or public comment. If a member of the public initiates specific complaints or charges against an employee in order to protect the employee's rights to privacy and due process, the board will only hear those complaints or charges in closed session. The board encourages concerned individuals to file complaints using the appropriate district complaint procedure and appropriate forms, which can be obtained from the district's website. As per policies B, DDH, and KD, please limit your comments to the board to one time. If your comments have been previously submitted in writing, please refrain from addressing the board a second time. Policies B, DDH, and KD continue to state, questions asked by the public shall, when possible, be answered immediately by the chairman or referred to staff members present to reply. Questions requiring investigation shall be referred to the board or administrative staff for consideration and later response. We have received no written public comment, so is there any in-person public comment?
Hello, Madam Chair, Superintendent McGovern, Board. I want to stand right now.
Please state your name.
Oh, my name is Mark Cholak. I am a teacher at Rock Springs High School. I'm also a member of Sweetwater Education Association. I wanted to, first of all, thank you for putting the board discussion of a climate survey back on the agenda. I've kind of been contacting a few board members to put out feelers about maybe revisiting the issue, because the last time it came up, if I remember, it was tabled and it went back to the committee that was considering it. And I really never heard anything beyond that. But I do want to stand and once again refresh some of the ideas why I think a climate survey is a good idea and something necessary for our district. Okay. So first of all, why did I decide to bring this up? You guys know me. I've been here before. You know what I do. I joined SEA probably the first day I was hired in this district because I believe teachers need to be heard. And if I were to go back through my entire message of everything relevant between SEA and the board is that teachers don't feel heard. A lot of people have mentioned how they feel like they can't change things in their school building. They can't change things through the grievance process. And there are things that teachers know that admin and the board probably don't that could benefit the district. Okay. And so my idea for a climate survey is not to slam everybody who I think is not doing a good job. A climate survey is diagnostic, right? If you pulled your car into the garage and he started turning bolts and screws and stuff like that, before he knew what was wrong with the car and where the issue in the car was, you'd probably be pretty upset. Okay? A climate survey gives us a chance to pinpoint issues, to find out, first of all, what the issues are, where the issues are, and then we can go about trying to solve some of the issues. Okay? Why conduct one? Well, it provides a way for people to weigh in. Okay? If you listen to what a lot of parents locally and nationwide say, their frustration with the school system is because they don't feel it's accessible. They don't feel that they can go and share an issue and have it addressed or resolved. This provides, so when I talk about a climate survey, I'm talking about community, students, staff, stakeholders, businesses, anybody that has an interest in our district, which I hope is everybody, this gives them a chance to weigh in. Okay? It increases transparency. Okay? It's another way of looking at things. It's another way of providing data, and it's another way of charting a course. Okay? It provides a response. A climate survey provides a response to the age-old complaint, you never listen to what people want. Here it is. Tell us what you want. Tell us what we're doing wrong. Tell us where we can improve, and tell us what you want. Okay. Conducting a climate survey shows a commitment on the part of the board and the entire district to do better, right? We know that, right now schools are not very popular in the United States. Okay, conducting a climate survey says, okay, you bring your ideas in. Okay? Now, what about the response? I know somebody's already thinking this. Mr. Cholak, we've done that. We've invited parents in, we've invited stakeholders in, we've done that. And sometimes this boardroom has been filled, and sometimes you get what? 2 people. And one of them's me. That's never a good thing. It provides another way for people to weigh in, to participate, to influence education in Rock Springs. And if they don't take that opportunity, that is their fault. They had the chance. You don't take the chance, then shut up with your complaints, basically. Okay. There are pitfalls available to people who conduct climate surveys. Is a climate survey going to be a big black eye for the district? I'm going to say probably yeah. Is it going to be a big black eye for admins? Probably yeah. Is it going to be a big black eye for some individuals? Yeah. You know what, though? We already have those black eyes. Those have been delivered. Every one of us has been punched and beat and abused in so many ways. I don't think we're going to find out any big major negative things about the district that we don't already kind of know exist. We just may not know the impact. We may not know the size of the problem, if that makes any sense. Okay. It shows courage. Okay. When was the last time a politician came and knocked on your door and said, "Hey, I'm just hanging out today, and could you please tell me all the ways I'm screwing up? I'd really like to hear." Okay? They don't do that. You guys have the opportunity to do that. Okay. Is this an effort by SEA to make the district look bad? That's not my intent. There's just as much potential for this to backfire against SEA as there is against the district, right? What if we conduct a climate survey and find out overall teachers are happy, overall teachers like what's going on, overall the community thinks that what we're doing is pretty solid, and we find out from some non-member teachers that they just really hate SEA. I saw a couple of people grin, but they're out there. There are a lot of people, a lot of teachers that wouldn't join us no matter how much I paid them to join. We paid them $50 last year to join. Free local dues, basically. They liked that. Okay. If we can conduct a climate survey, in my opinion, it has to be anonymous. The district has conducted surveys in the past that collect your email address. That's not anonymous. Okay. There are some surveys that the district might conduct that, yes, you need to be able to connect back to those people that made those answers. This would not be one of them. If you want honest answers and you want participation, if you collect people's names or emails or identifying information, it'll be invalid, because I don't think it'll be honest. By the same token, it needs to be conducted independently. Okay. It needs to be done by someone that doesn't have a dog in this fight. Okay. I wonder how many admin would be really happy to say, guess what? SEA is going to conduct a climate survey, and we're only going to ask our members because that's all we really have access to. And this is going to be great because we're going to come up with the questions, and we're going to come up with the ideas, and we're going to come up. I hope that if we did that, the admin would say, get lost, because that wouldn't be a valid survey, right? And even if we conducted a survey and got a signed, certified affidavit from the Pope, you guys wouldn't entirely trust it. And I wouldn't blame you. The data has to be, I guess, uninfluenced by any other sources. And then finally, if we conduct a climate survey, it needs to be a united effort. It needs to be something that the board, the admin, SEA, anybody else who should be a part of the group should all stand together and say, yes, we're doing this together. We want your feedback. We want your input. Please be honest with your answers. And those are really the only comments I want to make in reference to the climate survey. I did want to make a couple of comments related to what Mr. Supa said about our efforts to improve achievement at the high school. I mentioned a little bit of it in June when I was here. There's Jody. You remember when I was on the Community Curriculum Council and we were trying to hammer home this idea of evidence-based grading, and I kept asking questions and no one could answer my dang questions. And so why would I be on board with this big new change that's going to affect my life when the person training me can't answer my questions? That's my big problem, is I ask a lot of questions, and if I don't get the answer, if I don't get a satisfying answer, I keep asking questions. Okay. So this time last year, evidence-based grading. What do you think, Mr. Cholak? Oh, I hate it. It's terrible. Now it's been explained to me by someone who understands it, by Dr. Porter. I joined the summer school group. I joined the little summer training group because here's the thing. I knew we were going to standards-based grading. For me, I needed to be as involved in that as I could, okay, because I didn't understand it. What I did understand, I didn't like. My questions weren't being answered. And so when I encountered somebody who actually knew what it was, what it looked like, who had actually taught this way, and this isn't a criticism of curriculum at all, okay? It opened up a whole new world for me. It made me see things in a completely different way. And it was explained to me in a way that made sense, okay? It's been common in my 14 years in the district now that we get a training on a Friday. Sometimes we implement whatever's been presented, sometimes we don't. We get a training on a Friday, and then Monday we all go out and do it. And then the folks like me who have trouble catching up with these things spend the rest of the semester trying to say, okay, how can I do this? I'm trying to implement this, but I got to do this too, and there's all this other stuff. And so a lot of these things get dropped. What we're getting from Gene and Copper is, number one, it's sustained training, okay? And from Dr. Porter. We didn't start preparing for summer school in May. We started toward the 1st of April, right? There's a lot of work that needs to be done to convert to a real student-centered classroom and a real evidence-based classroom. We came together as department groups. We worked on the stuff together. We came out with those lessons that we're going to be putting into those modules. And so the ability to have sustained time to work on something. I know we have Gene and Copper all next year. I can't wait. Okay. We seem to pull the plug on a lot of things, or we don't pull the plug and we don't let anyone know. For example, many years ago, our district spent a lot of money on Kagan training, right? But there hasn't been a lot of follow-up. I don't know how many teachers use Kagan structures at all right now. Probably some, probably not all. maybe kind of spotty usage here and there. But to me, that's just an example of something we put a lot of effort and a lot of time and money behind, and then just drop it. Okay, and I don't want to see us do that with this idea, because I don't think it's the magic bullet for education. Because you know what? There are no magic bullets. But the reason why I think this idea has a better chance of working is that, yes, that the sustained training, this goes directly into the classroom and addresses student achievement. Okay, a lot of the changes that we make in education in general and in the district are kind of around the margins, right? We changed to a 4-day school week because by making that change, we hoped kids would be happier, kids would do better, that teachers would be happier, teachers would do better. But that doesn't really direct student learning. Okay? This goes directly to the heart of the matter, and it addresses student learning, and it says to students, okay, we're going to help you learn this stuff, but you're going to have to prove what you've learned. You're going to have to provide the evidence. Okay. Some of you, if I bring up the name of my favorite teacher at Rock Springs High School when I was a student, okay, my favorite teacher was Chuck Tate. Well, I'm a history guy. Chuck Tate's a history guy. If you had Chuck Tate's class, there wasn't any choice, right? We didn't have input into the procedures. We didn't have input into the deadlines. In fact, Mr. Tate would look you pretty directly in the eye and say, here's the assignment, here's the due date, do it. You either did it or you didn't. And then sometimes if you were lucky, you could get Mr. Tate to yell at you with his one of his catchphrases was, "What in the Sam hell are you guys doing back there?" I think it's a fresh approach to just attack the problem directly, and I just wanted to state that tonight. Thank you very much.
Mr. Mickelson? Yes.
I just, one, we did actually take action and transferred the budget for the climate survey back to the district for general use, because it was just determined that it wasn't the time. But that wasn't what I wanted to say. I wanted to say thank you. As people really know, I'm not a huge fan of social media, and I feel like that's where a lot of people get the black eyes and beat up. And it's also, I think, contributes to our recruitment issue because there's so much negativity in our community about education. And I've noticed a trend where that has shifted in general, and there are more people willing to speak up. And there was someone who was being quite critical of the number of administrators we have and their function. And I very much appreciated your comment to the effect that we're all on the same team. It's not, board versus teachers or administrators or whatever. And it is, I think, a huge step in the right direction for more and more of us to use our voice to say, hey, guys, there are issues in education, but it ain't us. And so let's all get together. So I very much appreciated that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Marty Albert, and as of next Thursday, I get to say I'm a third grade teacher at Sage. Pretty excited about that. I'm going to make two comments, two different hats. First comment is on the Sweetwater Education Association Executive Board. I appreciate Mr. Chug's enthusiasm about doing a survey. That is not something currently under discussion with the Executive Board. We would be happy to partner with the district to do that. Second comment is just me, myself, and I. In a very brief conversation with Mrs. Bolton, we talked about something that we had both read about. Help me, stay surveys? think they were called a stay put survey, but I could. At 2:10 this afternoon, I was peeling my greedy fingers off my 5-month-old grandson in Laramie. So if I'm incoherent, that's why. It was, I think, called a stay put survey that we thought might be more specific to needs and not as general. So as these things are thought about, talk to Ms. Bolton, she's got some ideas. I think a survey would be a great idea. I think a lot of people would like to help improve things. A lot of people work for that. A lot of people care. And those of us who are staying and are never going to wave the I'm leaving flag would also like to be heard. Thank you.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, Glenn Supas, principal of Rock Springs High School, and I am speaking for the high school. I would like to take some time and provide some invitations. First and foremost, August 11th and 12th, we are receiving more training on the early adopter program at Rock Springs High School with Gina Copper. They will be at the high school the afternoon of the 11th and the morning of the 12th. As always, the school board is invited to attend. We'll be in the library. We would love to see you there. This is very much an abbreviated training from what was received during the summer, but this is part of the process of the personalized mastery that we're moving towards. So you are invited, and I would love to see you there. Come on in. There might be a goodie or two. So, that's always a plus. Also want to extend my invitation to you for the freshman orientation day that we are going to be participating in on August the 16th. We will have 2 sessions, one in the morning and then one in the afternoon. Invites are being sent out tomorrow to freshman parents. Freshmen are invited to come in, get their schedule, pick up their computer, go through their classes and their schedule, have some icebreaker activities with some of our high school mentors, and then discussion on expectations for the school year. So we're providing 2 sessions on August 16th. We'd love to have you there. Also, Rock Springs High School would like to invite you to the first day of school, August 17th, 8 o'clock in the morning. We would love to have you at our school first day. There will be breakfast involved. I will bribe you to come to the school on the first day of school. I'd love to have you there. Help us greet our students as they are coming in. And then we mentioned Tiger Town Bash last month. Please don't forget, we have our Tiger Town Bash on September 1st. The parade, the students will be leaving Rock Springs High School at 4:30 to go through the town, ending at Bunning Park for a big pep rally. We would love to see you there. A little different venue this year, a little more shade, nice amphitheater, power, and no semi-trailer that could possibly collapse as the football team jumps up and down on it. So that was a great move on the part of Mr. Jasmine and the Tiger Town Bash Committee. So we'd love to have you there. You're always more than welcome to bring a vehicle and have your own float in the Tiger Town Bash Parade. You could put a sign on there, school board members, and no one will throw anything, I promise. Also on September 2nd, we have our first home football game, 6 o'clock, where we will be honoring the Hall of Fame inductees. Should be an excellent football game. I attended the first football practice last night at 12:01. That was incredible to see. We had 65 football players show up for practice at 12:01. It was great to hear their enthusiasm and watch practice. So it should be an excellent football game. And then on September 3rd at 6 o'clock at the Tiger Gym, we have our Hall of Fame dinner, 6 o'clock. And you are more than invited to come and join us for that recognition. So just some invitations. This will hopefully be a monthly thing. So you will be hearing more from us. So thank you. And if you have any questions, please give us a call. We'd love to have you there. Thanks again.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, Superintendent, members of the board, just want to give you a brief update on some of the things that are going on around the district. For those of you who remember, the chillers are on order. They should be arriving. We have the one for Overland has arrived. The other one should be here this month. Another one comes in for next month. This month we should get Desert View. Next month will be Walnut. All the piping has been put in. We're framing things out to, in fact, the framers were here today, so that'll all be framed in. Once those are done, every one of our schools will have air conditioning. There won't be a building around that doesn't. Generators for Overland and for the junior high are on order. Just waiting for those to come in so we can get started on those. On the access controls for the entire district have been ordered. The locks themselves are coming in kind of slowly, but they are coming in. The original project that we had for Overland, all of those locks except for 10 of the interior locks have not showed up yet. They should be here within the next week or two. In the meantime, what I did was I had the guy from Salto send us a factory certified rep who can train all of our folks as well as some of the contractors that we use and that are approved for our schools, so we don't have any issues. And everyone has been trained and certified to put these locks and the lock assemblies in place. So my thought is, as these start coming in, we can now have just about anybody from our district that is in the facilities department install these locks, and they are certified to do so. So rather than relying on subcontractors and having them come in and schedule us, we have people here on staff. If something goes wrong, we don't have to worry about warranties because our folks are certified to do this. It's amazing how many locks we have. I mean, people don't realize how many doors. And it's important to note to everyone, when we get done with the district, there will not be a mechanical key. Everything will be card. That includes restrooms, closets. A lot of times with the closets, it's kind of nice to, keep track of if you're missing, as prices go up, you have to take inventory of paper, stock, things like that. It's kind of nice to know who had access to the closets. Restrooms, we were putting in just a regular mechanical key, like a flat bar key. But honestly, for the cost of those keys, those lock sets, they're almost identical to a badge key. And so if somebody goes in, it's locked. Nobody else can come in even with a badge key. So it's kind of a neat setup that we have. The only other thing that we have on the access controls is there is a backlog for what they call gateways and nodes. The gateways are what we're required to talk back and forth to the server. The nodes are, rather than put gateways throughout the building, every gateway holds like a little node, which is just a mini relay. It's a wireless relay that can take up to a certain amount of locks. We can put 7 nodes onto a gateway so we can spread them out throughout the schools, but we have to have that in order for this system to be internet or web-based. What that means is if we have somebody who needs to get into the school, we can energize it from any location. And on the other side of the coin, if somebody gets released from the district, within seconds, they are no longer access to the buildings. A lot of the building controls I'm looking into is because of what happened in Texas. They have a switch, and the switch is a positional switch. Now, this wasn't something that I had figured in the beginning, but I believe that I have enough money built into the security project so that a lot of times what happens in the district, and it's whether it's intentional or unintentional, it doesn't matter. Somebody will accidentally or incidentally put a pebble, just a pebble, at the door jamb. The door, for all intents and purposes, if you look at it, it is closed, but it is not closed that extra 1/8 of an inch that it needs to be latched. So rather than take a chance, what I'm looking into now is we have door positional switches. We have some throughout the district. So if it doesn't close, even that 1/8 of an inch, it will alarm us to let us know that there is a door that is open. Okay. I used to use these in Evanston, and what happened was everybody was calling me. Well, once I put the principals on that call list as first to be called, the incidence of the doors being wedged open by a pebble went away. So we can inform anybody on the alarm, but I think it's something worth looking into, and that would only be the exterior doors. The interior doors, you can put them on, but honestly, that's an awful lot of locks, a lot of doors to put position control on there. So we're going to look at the exteriors. Head Start. Head Start was moving along. 2 things that we ran into. One was labor. I don't know where they went, but they were gone. And the other was somebody stole all of our sprinkler black iron pipe. We had a whole bunch of it outside. The guys went out there on a Thursday or Tuesday, asked me if we can look at the cameras. I had Zach try to look at the cameras. We don't have cameras on site, but we have cameras from this building that overshoot into the parking lot. The downside to that is unless there's motion in this parking lot, you don't always get to see what's going on over there. The upside is we can still get somewhat of a clear view as to, when the pipe was there. Come to find out, Zach showed me the picture and no one had noticed, but the pipe had actually been gone from Saturday. So my only thought is a lot of us work in the 410s, or if they do come in on Saturdays, we're only working half days. Somebody came in on the Friday prior to, and I don't know what they would do with the pipe. It's what they call Schedule 10. Normally your pipe for gas piping and things like that, Schedule 40 to Schedule 80. Schedule 10 pipe is real common in sprinklers because of the way they roll it and things like that. It's not meant for threading. So it's gone. And we had to get it. We had to get more, which they end up finding some on other projects that they had up in Casper. The big thing was those were 21-foot lengths, and I don't want 10-foot lengths because if we start going down to the store and buying Schedule 40 10-foot lengths, it means we've got all these joints in there. I don't want joints. When we're dealing with water, I would just soon not have any joints in there because even though we air test it, pressure test it, somewhere along the line, a joint fails, and now we have a leak, and it's just a hassle to deal with. So I chose to wait until they can bring down the pipe. That put us a little bit behind. We're gonna have the first day of Head Start. The students, we're planning on having everybody in that building on the 12th of September. Mrs. McGovern and I will let you guys know. Kelly will let you guys know when open house will be. But when
28th,
September 28th will be the open house. But other than that, carpet has been put in. The building has, for the most part, been painted. They're what they call cutting in around the trim and things like that. The chiller is on location. The chiller has been installed. They're pressure checking the chiller. We're still waiting on a generator and a transformer. Transformers are other issues with Rocky Mountain Power. Lighting has been changed out. What we're going to do when you go into that building, we're actually taking the east side. So if you're familiar with the building, where the break room is, from the break room to the east side, that is going to be closed for construction. So we're opening up everything from the restrooms that are across the corridor from the east side, from the break room, the office area, the nurse's room, all that has all been reconfigured. We have a new fire alarm system in there. We have a new security system in there. We're waiting for the mass notification system. The reason why I'm calling it a mass notification system and not an intercom system is because this will be similar to what we have up at Satellite School. It's my goal, once we get these put in throughout the district, if any school has an issue, they can get onto that intercom, the mass notification system, and we can alert everyone in the district at every building in the district, including the CAB. If Mrs. McGovern has an issue that she needs to relay out to everyone, she can do the same. It can go from the CAB out to every building. If Glenn needs to communicate with Lowell and Satellite, he can, with the push of a button, do an intercom announcement and reach everybody in Lowell and Satellite School as well. Okay. And the other reason why I call it mass notification system is because I don't get funded for intercoms, but I get funded for mass notifications. So it is a mass notification system. Okay. Other than that, things are moving along. We've got some more of our labor force back, actually last Friday. I was here Friday, Saturday. We got more ceilings put in over at Overland. Like I said, it's moving along. Stephanie's group has had their folks come in with the television mounts, so TVs can be mounted now. My guys should have had the ceiling tiles finished up on the west wing this today and tomorrow. Other than that, we're starting other projects, finishing up at Desert View, putting soffits in where the chiller lines are. Some of you saw today we had framers come in so we can get started on the boardroom. We need to bury all of these conduits and put new walls and everything up, and then we'll be working on the carpeting and things like that. Just so everyone knows, we have put this off to make sure everybody in the district, all the schools have been taken care of as much as what they need to be taken care of to have a good environment. this building has been last. I've been here going on 9 years. And for 9 years, everybody's been asking me, when are we going to do the boardroom? When are we going to do the boardroom? And Mrs. McGovern and I have talked about it, and this would be last because their students come first. Not saying that everything throughout the district is perfect, but we're still working on it, and we see an opportunity to get this done. These framers that I'm working with have been pretty consistent and pretty fast, and they've been working fairly reasonable price. So we should have this. I'm hoping to have this done probably by the end of October. Any questions?
Any questions? Thank you for that update.
Okay.
Further public comment? Further public comment? Seeing none, we'll move on to number 9, the treasurer's report. Mr. Jackman.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Treasurer's report for the month of July 2022. General fund, we started with $16,790,662.38. We finished with $12,602,476.45. On the school lunch, we started with $868,354.08, and we finished with $1,029,427.79. And for Head Start, we started with $91,633.23, and we finished with $91,668.29, and that concludes the treasurer's report.
Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Mickelson. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mrs. Thompson. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Opposed, nay. Motion passes. Mr. Jackman, the warrants.
Warrants for the month of, or through August 8th, I should say. Check numbers 153168 through 153644, totaling $3,168,941.10 with associated credit card charges and bank transfers.
I'd entertain a motion to approve the district warrants and approve the release of the payments.
So moved.
Moved by Mrs. Summers. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Reedy. All in favor, please say aye.
Madam Chair,
Aye.
I'm an aye, but I'd like to declare a conflict with number 40440.
Okay, Mr. Mickelson has a conflict. And so he will go back. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion passes. Okay. Consent agenda. All matters listed under the consent agenda are matters about which the board has governing policies, implementation of which is delegated to the superintendent. They will be enacted in one motion in the order listed below. There will be no discussion of these items prior to the time the Board of Trustees votes on the motion unless members of the board request specific items to be held and discussed separately and/or removed from this section. Motion to approve the consent agenda as presented. So A, I will go through these A. A is approval of the minutes from the July 20th, 2022 regular meeting. B, approval of the minutes from the July 20th, 2022 executive session. C, Central Administration Building, approval of Central Administration Building furniture bid. D, curriculum, nothing to report at this time. E, facilities, post approval of change order for the gym roof on Desert School. F, finance, approval of the resolution to amend the 2022-2023 budget. G is an addendum item, general board business, approval of the Wyoming High School Activities Association district representatives. H, nutrition services, approval of the bid for the purchase of a la carte beverages. Due to bidding irregularities, these items will need to be rebid. I, personnel, approval of the personnel recommendations, and notice that there are 5 hires, well, there are 5 personnel issues there, and then the addendum shows 2 additional hires, number 6 and 7. J, technology, post approval of shipping costs for the cab network bid. K, transportation, approval of the district fuel bids for the 2022-2023 school year. L, transportation, approval to declare one bus as surplus property. Hearing none of the items being held, I would entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda.
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Jackman. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mrs. Thompson. All in favor, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion passes. Item number 12, no business at this time. Number 13, board information. This is the board discussion on a district climate survey. Anyone? Mr. Jackman?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yep, I'm excited that we have the opportunity to do a climate survey. I would suggest we reconvene the committee for a climate survey of trustees to begin the process of finding an associated person to do the survey and begin formulating what we want to do.
Okay, other comments? So is that agreement with? Thumbs up, thumbs up. Okay, then I'm going to suggest that we have a subcommittee. I think we might have some new members, depending on who we had. So we could have up to 3 people on a subcommittee to kind of take a look at a vendor, probably a third party of some sort, and then looking at, laying the groundwork and probably an estimated bid kind of thing so that we can give Mr. Duncan the information necessary for the budget part of it, since it's currently not in the budget. So are there volunteers for that subcommittee? Mr. Mickelson, Mrs. Thompson, and Mrs. Summers. Okay, we have our 3. So I'm trying to think what kind of a time frame are you thinking? I know this is kind of spur of the moment, but what?
Madam Chair, I'm just going to speak for myself, but sitting on the committee before, it was a lot of sifting through a lot of information. We basically just did that for 3 meetings and then came to the conclusion that was way over our heads. So I think it's going to take us a while. It's not something we're just going to jump into and 2 months later have an answer. If we want to do this right, it's going to take time.
How about if we have a kind of a progress check at each meeting and see, and in that way, if you're getting close, then we can be sure and schedule it at an appropriate meeting to have that discussion. Does that sound like a plan?
Sounds good.
Okay.
Can I vote that Ms. Thompson is the chair of the subcommittee?
Ms. Thompson, will you accept the chair of the subcommittee?
I guess.
Okay, so we have a subcommittee of Mr. Mickelson, Mrs. Thompson as the chair, and Mrs. Summers. And then we'll work on that progressively. Thank you. Number 14, the board self-evaluation. Rubric. Let's do rubric 5 first on the planning. Anyone? Well, let me read through the items. Board planning responsibilities. Number 1, the board sets a clear direction for the district by establishing the district vision, mission, goals, and student achievement targets for the instructional program of the district based upon the needs and values of the community. Number 2, the board establishes clear, attainable, and measurable goals and student achievement targets that move the district towards achieving its vision with input from the community, students, staff, and administration. 3, the board establishes yearly expectations for student achievement and regularly monitors progress towards those targets during the school year. 4, the board goals and student achievement targets are updated on a yearly basis utilizing a thorough review and evaluation process. 5, the board and superintendent collaboratively develop long and short-term governance goals and a process for an assessment of progress and performance through the use of an annual superintendent evaluation and board self-evaluation. 6, the board requires the superintendent to discuss progress on goals and student achievement targets at designated intervals during the year. So let's start with that one. Anyone want to start with your score?
Madam Chair, I'll go
Mrs.
ahead and start.
Mrs. Summers, okay, thank you.
So I gave us a fairly low score on this one overall. I think this is an area that we have a lot of room for growth, and it came up, Madam Chair, in the discussion we had, during the workshop that the board should have more involvement in this and provide more support, and finding ways to do that. The other piece of this is some of these, I don't know how much this is in the board's lane and how much this, is administration. So I gave a total score of 2.75. And one of the ones I looked at was number 5. So collaboratively developing long and short-term governance goals and a process for assessment of progress and performance through the use of the annual superintendent evaluation and board self-evaluation. And I think, and the reason I scored us a 2 on this because while we do the board self-evaluations, I brought it up before, we're not really taking action on those. We're not doing anything with them as of yet. And so I think that's where we have a lot of room for growth. Let me see. The other, I don't see where the board necessarily establishes on number 3 yearly expectations for student achievement and then monitors the progress. I know that we get reports from the administration and the different schools come and give reports, but and I don't know how much of that is the role of the board or if that's one of those questions that maybe we need to look at when we do our board workshop on going over these self-evaluations. But I think, we could use more review and we could monitor that progress because ultimately we're here for student success and to support student success. So that's where I came from on board planning responsibilities in rubric 5. Thank you.
Thank you. Mrs. Thompson?
Madam Chair, I gave us a 3 on every single one of them. I do agree with, sorry, Mrs. Summers. On number 5, I did have that one marked as well. And I do believe that we are in the process of trying to meet for a workshop future and start hashing some of those issues out so we can actually make the leadership governance a little bit better for us as actually working towards accomplishing some of the goals. And number 3, I also had marked as well. And this one I simply just had kind of the same things Ms. Summers had. I wasn't sure what exactly our role is. I know we get reports on them, but in my mind, it would be kind of what we were discussing in the workshop, more checking back, where are we in the progress, instead of just waiting yearly. I would see more like a quarterly update.
Mr. Patolo?
Madam Chair, I also felt like there was room for growth on this one. I think mostly because we're not asking the questions that can be answered. I think part of the data difficulty that we have is that we're not asking the right questions or we're not being clear with what we would expect. I gave us a 2.6, and I gave us 3s in all areas except for 2, 3, and 4 for many of the statements that we've already heard. So overall, it's 2.6.
Mr. Mickelson.
So I gave this rubric as a whole an F, which I know isn't on the scale, but I have a lot of qualms about the implications of the questions. Answering it as it's written, I gave us 2s across the board, but this is sort of one of the rubrics that I think is most problematic. It would be very easy for a board with very good intent to establish those clear, attainable, and measurable goals in terms of theoretically attainable. I watched Natrona County do that last year, and the negative impact that it had on not just the administrators and teachers, but also on students in terms of if we don't hit this artificially set goal, then we failed, was very negative. And then of course across the country, we've seen districts that are celebrated because they get a 60% graduation rate up to 98%. And then we found out that it was all faked. And I would much rather have, an honest 74% than have us so desperate to hit these goals that we start getting up to some overly flexible thinking to be charitable. This is an area where I'd really like us to pay very close attention to our lane when we look at the rubric as a whole. Thank you.
Mr. Jackman.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm with Mr. Mickelson a lot on this. I really struggle with establishing a clear goal and then attainable. We know that 100% achievement and 100% students meeting expectations is not achievable. But if we're doing anything, if our goal is anything less than 100%, we're not doing our jobs. And that's what it comes down to. A year ago, and I know a lot of frustration, we haven't done anything with this recently, but I believe a year ago, we established with administration that last year was the baseline, and we needed that information to see where we were coming out of COVID. And that this year would tell us the next data point on the line so we can actually start setting those goals. Hopefully in the future we're better, but as a whole on the rubric, as it's written, we're like a 2, unfortunately. But again, I don't think it's fair to say we only want 80% of our students to achieve, which is an attainable, measurable goal, but it's not. It shouldn't be our goal. Our goal should always be 100%. Thank you.
Mr. Reedy.
I agree. We should always shoot for that 100%. I think there's should be more board involvement as well. I gave us an overall grade of 2.8.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any more? Anything else, Mr. Reedy?
No, ma'am.
Thank you. And I too had concerns about 2, 3, and 4. I think the workshop tonight is a starting point for where we are to become familiar with what's going on in the schools. I too worry that, setting specific goals, the ramifications of not meeting those goals, and what kind of pressure does that put on people to reach those goals when in fact 100% is what we're looking for. So I think we need to be improving, and I think tonight's workshop was a first step, and I think we'll continue to meet with our administrators and break it down into smaller groups and allow them to bring maybe some teachers with them and stuff like that so that we get a good picture of what's going on in our schools. And I think that will help us with this one. I agree that this is one that I'm concerned about staying in our lane. But at the same time, I think we do need to be making some movement towards better achievement.
Madam
So
Chair.
mine was 2.5. No, you're fine.
I'm curious how we felt the teacher evaluation rubric and policy where we expect growth,
Mhm.
how we as a board feel like that fits into our goals. Because as a board and on our responsibilities part of the rubric, I feel like that does fit kind of our objectives and what we're looking for.
Well, and I think I've made that comment. We expect growth from our students. We're expecting growth from our teachers. We're expecting growth from our administrators. We too should expect growth from this board. So I think, we're definitely in the growth model as opposed to a certain achievement, a certain level and then we're content to be there. So I think we need to show improvement across the board. Okay, moving to number 7, and this concludes the rubrics that we have for the year. Number 7 has to do with budget and finance responsibilities. Number 1, the board establishes priorities for the financial management of the district in alignment with district goals and objectives for student achievement. 2, the board provides the superintendent with the board's priorities in the development of the budget based upon a yearly evaluation of existing programs. 3, the board directs that the budget consider both short-range and long-range revenues and expenditures. 4, the board encourages input from staff, parents, students, and community members throughout the budgeting process. 5, the board requires quarterly reports which depict the district's financial status be presented in a clear and understandable format for board review and to inform the public. 6, the board establishes policies which ensures efficient administration of purchasing, accounting, and payroll procedures. And 7, the board establishes policies to ensure that adequate resources are distributed equitably to schools, staff, and students. Okay, Mr. Jackman?
Thank you, Madam Chair. As Ms. Summers, I'm sure will note, this is a lot of yes or no questions, but we do a pretty good job. I do have questions on number 2. I don't recall doing number 2 except one time when we did the board budget workshop, and even then that was a very soft version of number 2. So I'm at 3.75, but number 2, the only one that's really not a yes or no question, is something we're slacking at.
Okay, we'll reverse the order. Mr. Mickelson?
So my composite score is 3.7, and my 3s were 4 and 5. I know that we welcome public feedback during all of our budget hearings, but it is a fairly passive encouragement, whereas I know we have a formal process for others. And then on 5, we get a lot of reports, but I haven't paid close enough attention to know whether or not we are requiring quarterly and meeting that requirement, which is on me. But overall, the superintendent and Mr. Duncan do an amazing job of preparing our budget and presenting those changes and shifts in priorities with individual programs. Thank you.
Mr. Patolo?
Sorry about that. This particular category feels to me like we either do these things or we go to jail. So it's kind of, and I think what we really do in this is listen to what our superintendent and our finance staff tell us to do. I think there's always an opportunity to maybe communicate with our population a little bit more. So I gave us also a 2.75, 3.75, I'm sorry. Jeez.
Mrs. Thompson?
I have to echo what my fellow board members have already stated. I too gave us a rating of 3.75. I did mark item 4 and item 5. However, I did want to point out just some language that I'm not sure about. So we might want to talk about that during one of our upcoming workshops. But under number 5, it says clear and understandable format. I guess for me, I struggle with that because what might be clear and understandable for me to read might not be clear and understandable for someone else. So that might be something that we could look at, like can we maybe just break it down even more if we need to, how we can explain it to people if we were asked about the budget. And then for number 4, I just feel that no matter how many processes we have for community involvement, you can never have enough.
Mrs. Summers?
I gave us an overall score of 3.5. I too looked at number 4. And so I've heard several comments, and this is just an example about, the input into the ARP and the ESSER grants. And there were people who have said they asked for our input, and then it's like the district just did what they were going to do anyway. And so I don't know how much people feel like their input always gets used. And then also, maybe asking for more. And I know that we asked for quite a bit. So that was one of my 3s. And I do echo what Trustee Jackman said. I think most of these are do or don't type questions. The other one I looked at was number 7, establishes policies to ensure that adequate resources are distributed equitably to schools, staff, and students. And I know that recently we changed how library monies are kind of allocated. And I'm, interested to see how that change works out through the district, to see if our libraries across our schools are more equitably resourced, if they have more, equitable allocation of resources versus the way we previously did it, where each school was given a budget for the library, and sometimes it got used and sometimes it didn't, or sometimes it got used more extensively based on the principal, and sometimes maybe it didn't get used as extensively. And so some of our libraries didn't have as many resources as others did. So I'm interested to see, as we transferred that back over to our curriculum office, and they're overseeing the distribution kind of to our libraries, if that improves. But I'm also curious if we have other sort of departments that may be like that in the district, like the libraries were. So those were the 2 that I kind of highlighted to look at. And that's where I ended up with a score of 3.5. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Mr. Reedy?
I gave us an overall of 0.75. I think that Nicole is correct. These are things we have to do. And between Ms. McGovern and Scott and everybody, I think they do a very good job. So I will just leave it. Thank you.
Thank you. And I had a score of 3.6. I agree with number 4 and 5. I also rated number 1 with a 3 just because of the student achievement involvement there, and maybe not our best oversight with regard to the student achievement. So that's where I am. I wanted to mention that I have contacted Dr. Kessler, I should say, and we are scheduled for that training to work on this. So we are not going to do any part of the evaluation in September, because they've worked on some things and they've kind of narrowed it down to 5 or 6 categories. And so I want to do the training. Let's pick out what we're going to do and work with him. And those that will be Thursday, September 22nd, from 5 to 7:30. So please add that to your calendars. And like I said, he's going to bring a starting point. We'll be able to compare what we've had. So any notes that you have had over the year with regard to specific things, please bring those with you, and we'll look at see how we can improve this evaluation system overall. And that will be here in probably the conference room. And I think we said dinner. We did. We'll, yeah, since we're starting at 5, dinner will be provided. Okay, thank you for that. Okay, let's move on to the book study. Chapters 5 and 6 in the book study. Anyone have some comments to make?
Madam Chair.
Mr. Batolo.
I liked Chapter 5 because it introduces the idea of maybe pressing back a little inside of our system and actually cultivating a system that allows that to happen, that is very supportive. The quote I had is, "It's vital for the stakeholders to be able to doubt current practices in order to improve them for the future." I thought that was a really good statement. And then in Chapter 6, the quote that stood out for me is, "The author's new definition of collective efficacy in a school is the teachers," I'm sorry, I can't read that, "and learners' shared perceptions of the efforts of the faculty and learners as a whole will have a positive effect on the learning." I feel like that kind of team is something that we should continue to encourage.
Anyone else?
Madam Chair.
Mrs. Summers.
I too highlighted quite a bit in chapter 5, and there were a couple of pieces that I really highlighted because not only do they go to this, the standards-based grading process that the high school is currently in, but it talks about continuous improvement and continuous growth. And one of the things I highlighted said, in a continuous improvement process, it's vital for the stakeholders to be able to doubt current practices in order to improve them for the future. But the whole basis of this chapter was on you have to have trust in the process in order to be able to doubt. And so, it's called Trust to Doubt. And they defined how to build trust. And I think that's an important thing. We've heard as a board that, there are stakeholders that don't trust the board. And I think one of the important things is to maybe look at what we must do to gain trust. And they outlined 6 things. One was to be present and aware. One was to be open. One was to listen without judgment and with empathy. One was to seek understanding. What are people truly saying? What is that position? One was to view learning as mutual. And one was to honor the person and the process. And I think these are things that we could incorporate into our growth as a board and our improvement in our leadership to help in that continuous improvement process. And that was one of the things that I thought was really kind of profound in this chapter. Thank you.
Anyone else? Mr. Jackman?
Thank you, Madam Chair. One thing I found was in Chapter 6, the definition of collective efficacy, and it talked about efficacy across the entire school, working together, including the students and the learners. And that's something we've really always talked about, working towards achieve. So it's right in line with our goals, and I'm excited to see it moving forward.
Anyone else? I too like the idea of the doubt part of it, the pushing back a little bit, but you had to trust first, and the explanation about you're not really willing to doubt and push back until you do have trust in the system and on the people around you. So I think that is a key point. And to piggyback on Mr. Jackman's, I like the collective efficacy is the perception that everyone is a teacher and a learner, and the collaboration between the learners and teachers enhances everyone's learning. so that it kind of falls in line with some of the things that I think we heard with Copper and Jean, where, small groups and students are helping students, and in some cases, students may be helping the teacher to understand where they're coming from. So I think it's that back and forth that is opening up instead of it being just directed one way. Mr. Reedy, do you have anything to add?
No, ma'am. Thank you.
Anyone else? Okay, then we will do chapters 7 and 8 for next month. Good of the order, item number 16.
Madam Chair.
Mrs. Summers.
I just wanted to say congratulations to all those 4-H and FFA kids in the district and in Green River as well, who just finished up another successful county fair. There were lots of wonderful projects out there. I do want to say good luck to those of you who will be attending State Fair next week. And if you will be missing school, just a reminder to let your building administrator know that you will be attending State Fair, so that those absences can be excused. So just that reminder. And I think our fair office maybe will get a list to, would it be best for that list to go to, who would it be best to go to, Mrs. McGovern?
Building principals.
Just the building principals. If they had just a whole list of all kids attending and they don't know the breakdown of where they're going to school, can we have them send them to the central?
Sure, that could go to myself or Nicole.
Okay, so I'll see if we can get a list of students who will be attending State Fair from the district sent to you guys too.
Thank you. Other good of the order? I will just remind you that the Wyoming School Boards Association has their fall roundup, and it will be Wednesday, September 21st. That's how Dr. Kessler is making the trip, so that he'll be here for that in Green River on the 21st, and then our training on Thursday, the 22nd. I also wanted to update you, or get some feedback, I should say, regarding the student representative on the board that we talked about. I had anticipated, I had a call with board chairs scheduled for last Thursday, in which I was going to get some information from those people who already have a student sitting on their board. This is a non-voting member of their board. And that phone call got postponed till this Thursday. So I don't have that information, but I'm wondering, we did talk about it being a senior from, an officer. I did kind of work on a rotation, starting with Rock Springs High School, and then going to Farson Eden High School, and then Black Butte High School. And then we could just repeat that rotation. I'm wondering if you have any further thoughts with regard to any criteria that we might give the principals as far as the selection of that student. Mr. Mickelson.
So my thought was that the building principals and teachers are probably in the best position to know which student would be interested and take it seriously, and do well in that role. So rather than our setting up criteria, I thought that it might make sense to turn that over to them to say, hey, send us the kid that that wants to do this, that has an interest, that would show up and not clown, I think is the vernacular. Thank you.
Anyone else? Well, and I think our intention was for them to come from student government, so that, and all three schools do have a student body, governing body. And I guess I guess I agree with Mr. Mickelson. I don't want someone who feels like they're being forced to do it, so that if a student prefers not to do it, that it wouldn't prohibit a prior student from doing it again, I guess is what I'm open to. I don't know what your thoughts are. You know, so I think some students might be comfortable with this and perhaps others may not. So it's not something that we want to force on them, but we do want to give students an opportunity. I think this is a great, you know, for a student leader to add to a resume kind of thing. So, Mr. Mickelson?
To that point, I just had a conversation with a parent whose senior graduated when everything was shut down. And one of the things that she pointed out is that we still all too often have one box that we put all kids in. And she had been fighting with her child all year long about going to graduation. He wanted nothing to do with it because the thought of walking across that stage in front of all those people was mortifying to him. And then when we did the individual graduations, he was up at 6 a.m., ready to be there at 11:30, so excited and so thrilled to get to do something for graduation. And I thought it was a really cool story. But, you know, there are people who don't mind being up in front of everybody and people who that would be kind of a fresh new hell. So I like that point. Thank you.
Well, and another point, another thought that I've had is, what's the expectation when they're here? Do we want them to provide us with some information? You know, I mean, just sit here? I mean, I'm looking for some input from a student perspective, and I'm wondering if we, you know, have some kind of thought process as far as them reporting on what's going on in their building, or, you know, your thoughts there.
Madam Chair,
Mr. Jackman.
I'm just looking over like tonight's agenda as a sample, and I can see a couple opportunities where different information might have been better. We talked about a climate survey coming from the students, the budget requests. You know, the kids are in the schools, they probably see different things that we need money for than administrators might need to see. Even, you know, what the board is doing for their education, they might think we're doing different things. So I think there's a lot of opportunities just to get from their point of view. We'd have to be careful and make sure that they're properly, I guess, trained on what they are doing or taught or something. It would be interesting to have a student that's uneducated and has no idea what's going on come in and try and provide feedback. I don't think that would be productive for anybody.
Well, and I think that's why we're looking at people that are in student government, because they would have some of that background.
And I remember being in student council, and I was really good about reading the agenda 3 minutes before the meeting started. And I was a great student, and I was recommended, and I'm sure I would have been recommended then, but I also know my diligence in a teenage life.
Well, and that would be up to some of the administrators in the selection process. So does that give us some, and I will ask the question again on Thursday in my meeting. And if I come up with anything else, I'll bring it forward. So, but I think in September, we're probably looking at a student from Rock Springs High School. Okay. Item number 17, new business. The vacancy notice was updated as of today. So that was part of what was uploaded today. And B, the July 2022 Head Start Governing Board and Policy Council monthly report. And we decided that we would no longer include the calendar. So we're looking for that as far as a district calendar on the website, I believe. Okay.
Madam Chair.
Mr. Jackman.
I don't remember how we've done things in the past I know Nicole just is hiring new people every day. On the vacancy notice, do we need to just say, put them to work and we'll approve them at the next meeting?
I don't know that we can legally do that. I think if I remember correctly, they're hired as a sub until they are approved.
Okay.
Because it's a legal thing. They have to be hired before they can, by the board. It has to be approved by the board. Okay. Does that answer that question?
Yep. Okay, great.
Yeah.
Madam Chair.
Yeah, with proper certifications, then it's back pay. Anything else?
Yeah, I guess my question is, I'm looking at this vacancy notice and I've already been getting questions from parents about, well, how many long-term subs are we going to have in those classrooms this year because you can't fill all those positions. And so I'm just curious if we could get kind of a rundown of what are we looking at? Maybe worst case and best case scenario, just so I have an answer to tell them, because honestly, I just don't know.
Nope, that's a good question. We're filling every single position except for 3 right now with the long-term subs. Partly because with the enrollment in some of the classes, they were able to shift some stuff around that they don't have to fill them. Most of the long-term subs we placed subs that we had last year that are in the process of getting their teaching degrees. Some of them already have it, or they have a degree in an area that they don't necessarily can't become a certified teacher with it unless they want to get on an exception. And we opened, I think, only 7 positions to interview full-time, long-term subs because we were able to fill them pretty much with what we did last year. And we are taking a little bit different approach with some mentoring this year of putting them one-on-one with a certified teacher in that subject area, just to give them even that much more support. So all of them except for 3 right now, and that's because we're choosing not to fill those 3 and dependent on need. Our long-term subs also, if people ask, they are semester to semester. So if we can fill them with certified teachers in January, we will, and we have a bunch of student teachers placed in the fall. So I'm hopeful. Does that answer your question, Ms. Thompson?
Yes, thank you.
Okay.
And you'll recall that Superintendent McGovern filed with the WDE to become part of that pilot program. We were not selected for that, but hopefully maybe there's some folks in district that are looking to, paras that may be interested in trying to get certified and stuff like that. So we may be looking at some things to try to encourage that. So that would be for your information too. So if you hear of people that are currently subbing and might be interested, that's another kind of what they call grow your own kind of system. So, and sometimes those are people that are in the community that want to stay in the community, and they turn out to be very, very, they're already employees, but they can turn out to be certified employees. Okay, item number 18. I would entertain a motion to go into executive session for the discussion of legal and personnel matters.
So moved.
It's been moved by Mr. Jackman. Is there a second?
Second.
Second.
Second by Mrs. Summers. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Opposed, nay. Okay, we are now in executive session, and again, it's for the discussion of legal and personnel matters. I do not anticipate any action upon our return. Entertain a motion to return from executive session.
So moved.
It's been moved by Mr. Mickelson. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Jackman. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, nay. The motion passes. I'd entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
It's been moved by Mr. Jackman, second by Mrs. Summers. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, nay. We are adjourned.